Have you tried to buy vintage PS2 games recently? The results will surprise you. Many of them have increased in price significantly. And I'm not just talking about games that are still in their original packaging. The collectible market for unplayed games is a whole other story. A strange, horrifying in its own way kind of story. But that is not today's story. No. Today, we're talking about games that have been played. The case is opened, the discs have been used, and the manual's read? I guess. Would you like to guess which games have skyrocketed in value? Strangely, many of the highest prices are scored by, that's right, survival horror. Yup. I'll give you some examples. Example 1, Rule of Rose. Example 2, Kuon. Example 3, Haunting Ground. And finally, Obscure. Never heard of these titles? I don't blame you. Neither had I. Pause this video, look them up on eBay, take a deep breath, and then please, come back here. I dare you. If you used to own a copy and have lost it or sold it for nothing, I'm sorry about the cognitive dissonance that might arise. I have my own lost childhood treasures. The pain diminishes over time, but not completely. Anyway, back to the games. I've never played any of these games. I hadn't even heard about them until I started looking up the PS2 game values. I did play Silent Hill 3, though. If you think that a video game can't be scary, you've never played one. It's scary. I enjoyed the process, but I couldn't comfortably play it alone. Frankly, I couldn't comfortably play it at all. The best I got with Silent Hill 3 was to invite a bunch of friends, to somebody else's house. Yeah, to play the game. We did it with the lights closed. It was creepy. It was scary. And I think we had a lot of fun. But we never did it again. And I certainly never popped the disc back into my PS2. Back into the case it went. And that's where it stayed. Which is why I happily still have this game. It doesn't have Rule of Rose or Kuon value, but it's certainly the gem in my collection. Clearly, I should have bought more Japanese horror games, but it's too late now. Since I only got through the early parts of the game, Silent Hill 3, I can't tell you much about it. You spend some time in a shopping mall, all hell breaks loose at some point, and you end up in a very scary place. I don't recall having access to much weaponry. You solve creepy puzzles, though. You try not to die, but you do. And scary stuff happens all the time. I recently watched some good YouTube analysis on the game, and the story was really long. I got a little confused. And clearly it gets much worse than anything I experienced in terms of scariness. If it were a movie, it'd be right up there on the scary factor. And it's pretty gross too. But it's a game, so your brain thinks it's happening to you. Okay, maybe that happens in a movie too, but to a lesser extent, I'm serious. Anyway, people are willing, now at least, to pay a lot of money to be scared by old games. I haven't re-entered the world of Silent Hill 3 yet. Would it still scare me? Would I laugh at the graphics? Special effects and CG can get pretty dated pretty fast. Would it be the same here? I remember the scares coming more from being disturbed, though. And if that's the case, it will likely hold up. Disturbing imagery and ideas, those are timeless. In terms of horror, obviously. So, I suspect Silent Hill 3 is as scary as it always was. It's certainly been haunting my collection for years. It just sits there, inviting me. It knows I'll come back. Eventually. It knows I will never sell it. It knows. But back to market forces. I wonder about this surge in nostalgic horror video games. Does nostalgia have a multiplier effect for horror? Clearly, nostalgia plus horror can create value. People are willing to pay a lot of money for some of these things. None of these titles commanded the prices they do today when they launched, I'll tell you that much. Can you imagine paying hundreds of dollars for a PS2 game back then? No. Yes, the collectibles market is fickle and hard to predict, and scarcity, regardless of quality, can be enticing in and of itself. I suspect that you could make a terrible game. Release it on PS2 and print, I don't know, 1,000 copies globally, and people would trip over themselves to collect it. Like if you re-released Rule of Rose today on PS2 or even PS5, would people buy it? Would people play it? Like a lot of people? Or is it just because it's rare? Still, the fact that so many of the highest values belong to horror is very peculiar. The economics of horror gets weird. I've heard stories that horror films can be the cheapest to produce, and then if they make it big. It makes sense to me. You don't need big actors. You don't need a lot of sets, a spooky house, a spooky forest. Those places don't cost much. It's not like they're rare. And how many sets do you need? Most of Saw took place in one room with people sitting down. And people love horror, if it's good. I'm not sure it's the same with games, though, in terms of cost and economics. Regardless, if you want some old-timey scares, and you want it on PS2 with the original disc, that's going to cost you. I don't know if the scares will hold up, but I bet they will. And in any event, the impact on your bank account is sure to terrify you. Okay, time to go look at my Silent Hill 3 case and consider playing it. Probably not. If you like that, click the like and subscribe buttons. And have you played any of the games discussed? Do you have a scary game that you don't play but won't sell? Please, tell me about it in the comments.